Looks like someone is telling you some sweet things over the phone.
We don't share our secrets, Moss.
It could be a
It
first.
could be a first, in the spirit of first times. Every time I look at this logo, every time I think about my first time, beyond just this platform that I created and that we're building as a team, I now start thinking about other firsts in my life.
Like, what's your first paycheck? What's your first job?
What's my first paycheck? My first paycheck was actually at, it must have been at Capital FM. And it was mind-blowing because I was 19. So I'm 19, I don't have a family, I don't have responsibilities at the time. And I was making a paycheck, so I can never forget that. And I think that's what instilled my hunger for financial independence.
Did you have a challenge like I had with my first check?
What was your first check?
I was paid for a gig. The funny thing, I took the check to the client's bank because it's the one which was on the... So my reasoning was like, this is where the money is.
Oh, no, as opposed to... So what happened
as
in the
opposed
end?
to no, the guy who I met there, the teller.
They guided you.
Yeah, they told me, you take to your bank. But I was like, this is where the money is.
The thing about first experiences is how they shape you. And I'm always so curious about people's first. What was your first favorite family memory? What was your first job? What was your first... There's just something about firsts that shape who you are. And sometimes they're not the best first experiences.
Firsts are unforgettable.
They are. You can never forget your first.
Yeah.
And that's why when we talk about first times in this case, it's about first time periods. You know, because I could never forget mine. And when my first time period experience, which followed me through all the way till I was a journalist that was part of the Periods of Shame story, those two worlds came together. I was faced with the anger and frustration of seeing issues around menstrual health that a lot of girls and women are experiencing, and my own haunted memories of being a 10-year-old girl who had never heard about periods and who woke up and her bed was full of blood, and then suddenly you're a woman. You know, so I don't know, first times are unforgettable. And they change you. It changed, because you go from being a girl overnight, a woman, and I feel like those are kind of the narratives we also need to change. How do you go from playing kati and with your dolls and everything to being told, achana na hiyo mambo sasa, you're now a woman?
I guess there's nothing bad with it. It's just how it's communicated.
Yeah.
Because every change comes with a significant event.
Yeah, and a transition.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like today you are single, tomorrow you go to church, the following day you are now a wife.
That's interesting, Moss.
Yeah.
I love, but going back to what you
But,
said about periods,
yeah.
The only reason it's a little harmful is because it sometimes gives the indication that this girl can now be married. Do you know what I mean?
Challenging thing here is how it's communicated and how it is interpreted in different cultures.
What you've said is spot on. It's how it's interpreted, it's how it's communicated, and it's something that we still deal with, where it can seem insignificant, but the moment you tell somebody within a certain context and culture that she's now a woman, or you tell somebody else who has access to information, these two girls' lives are forever changed. So first times can make or break you, actually, is what we should say.
All right.
And it's unfortunate.
Why are these conversations important, even among us the enlightened?
That's such a good question. I think because sometimes we imagine or think that the enlightened fully know everything. I know what started happening with me is a lot of people who I would consider enlightened would sidebar me and say, Janet, those conversations that you have, we need them in our school, we need them in our office, we need them in our campus, because sometimes we're ashamed to admit when we don't know. Sometimes we're ashamed to talk about certain parts of us or certain things about us, and so you prefer to ignore or shut it out, and then you don't know until it catches up with you. Suddenly you're feeling sick, or suddenly you're faced with a socially awkward situation, and now you're like, man, I wish I knew. Okay, we have the internet, but sometimes these face-to-face, what we do with the platform.
You need a relatable case.
You need a relatable case, and that's what we're doing, because this is we're actually, I think this is the third season of my first time. And I think the podcast was always supposed to be an extension of the stories in the book. It was supposed to be the never-ending conversation around these issues, with the aim to either shift policy or shift mindsets, one conversation and one story at a time.
So there's an evolution to it. What's so unique with this season?
Ish. Most Amanda into director, producer mode. What's unique for me? Oh yeah, what's exciting about this season is we have new voices. Because I was the main host, right, in the first season, the second season. And we've taken a break, right? The last season was 2022. It took a year. I did a lot of traveling for work last year. And I was trying to do a lot of thinking about what do I want my first time stories to be. And I want it to be youth-led. So we've introduced guest hosts, and I'm really excited about that. So now we'll have other people hosting episodes, just guest hosts until eventually, Moss, can I be honest? I want it to be fully youth-led. Eventually, I can come in as a special, not people coming into my special.
Yes, because they understand the dynamics that affect them currently.
100%. And
you will speak from...
Moss, are you about to trauma?
No.
I'll speak from...
Of course, the last time you were a teen.
Wow.
A decade.
Wow. Wow.
So you want them to relate to the dynamics that they are dealing with now. Because maybe they are not dealing with as much shame, but maybe they are dealing with
a different kind of issue.
Kind of stigma.
100%. For me, it's exactly what you said. It's about the conversation being relevant to their generation. And I just love seeing new voices come to life. So even when I was watching the guest hosts in action, or even when I was watching some of the girls that we interviewed, because this season is really exciting. It's a combination of young voices on the other side and young voices hosting. It's a mix of them, and it's audio, Moss. It's growth, Moss. Eventually, I want it to be audio visual. Season 4, guys, hold me to it. Season 4 will be audio visual, but this is audio. The only visual elements are some of the behind the scenes and promos and everything. But I felt such joy seeing new voices, new agency come to life. I feel like I have a passion for seeing people speak their truth, for giving them the platform and permission to speak their truth. And so for me, my first time is like a youth-led movement. It's not even just a conversation. It's a movement where you can talk about social impact issues that affect your health and rights.
Back to the first.
Back to the first.
And now, as we conclude.
Yes.
I'm trying to be you this time.
I know, yeah.
Did you struggle starting and having your first episode out? Your first book, your first episode?
You're going to make me so emotional. I've done a lot. Huh? It's always like, just when I feel like I have enough on my plate, I'm like, Moss, let's do this. The reason why I can say, I think there's always a bit of a struggle, but the way I do things, maybe this time, first of all, the day we were filming Moss was so chaotic. It's good for people to know the truth. Moss is very organized. Okay, I'm very organized as well. For anybody who wants to work with me, I'm super organized. It's just that, you know how it is. It's good to give people insights into behind the scenes. There was a lot happening at the same time, but we have a very incredible team. So that went well. But the point I'm making is, usually I plan ahead and work backwards. So even when I knew I was going to do the podcast, I planned months ahead. So by the time I was doing it, yes, there could have been nerves and I wasn't sure, but I did it because I had already built myself up to it. The same way when I resigned from TV in 2017, the day I resigned in April of 2017, I'd made the decision in October of 2016. 6 months of building the courage. By the time I did it, I was okay. That's how I operate. So even with the book, I thought about it. I said, do this thing, publish it in a year. Then I work backwards. So that's how I manage my frustrations and anxiety by giving myself time. Thank you for this therapy session, Moss. Thank you for my first time on the first time couch with first time pillows. With Moss is my first time therapy session. So I think you guys will really enjoy some of the faces and voices that we have this season. Some who are familiar to you and some who are not. So I can't wait to share it with you on our audio platforms, and then eventually we'll do some really fun audiovisual stuff. Adios. Au revoir.